It's morning again. It's that annoying alarm clock again, waking up for hateful work. And there's nothing to do. I have to wake up. This is torture. And it is not because I want to sleep. No one interferes with going to bed early or sleeping all the time you don't have to work. It's just cold to get out from under the covers, and nobody seems to be heating their house. In the evening, she turns on the electric heater for a while, but it only makes the electricity bill go up. All right, the first and rather rare morning lucky. My feet immediately hit the slippers. Omen. It means that the day will go at least a little more successfully than all the others. Second good fortune. There is hot water after all. At least I can wash my face in peace. Now to the kitchen. Eat something before work. Make some coffee. Make a cheese sandwich. This coffee is awful. Tea would have been better, of course, but we're out of tea. And all intelligent city people like to drink coffee in the morning, don't they? And Olivia has been a city intellectual for 7 years. She graduated from college, works as an economist. Although no one ever sees what she eats or drinks in the morning, but it's just to get her in the mood for coffee. Cheers her up, although the apartment cold has chased away the remnants of sleep, but no coffee will not improve the mood. And now the usual troubles began. A light bulb in the kitchen burned out. Well, let's do our makeup in the room, although it was warmer in the kitchen. Olivia has had so much bad luck in life that she's used to being a perpetual loser. But what could she do? It's fate. So there's a need for people like that. What for? That's another question. You can't get an answer to that. Well, let's say through destinies of people like Olivia, some higher forces show other people how lucky they are. And the problems of being unlucky have been known to many people for a long time. How many comedies there are about poor people sitting on broken chairs, mistakenly eating or drinking the wrong thing, falling in puddles, losing their pants in front of everyone, being accused of something they had nothing to do with. And everyone laughs at them. And often the losers themselves are the loudest. But that's in comedies. But what if in life, you sit on a chair that collapses under you? It happened to Olivia all the time. People around her tried to blame the girl for her bad luck. You're just very inattentive. How could you put sunflower oil on your ice cream instead of lemon syrup? Why did you have to wear a skirt with an unreliable zipper in the morning? Why did you stand there looking calm? Because you heard the sound of broken glass and saw everyone scatter. So you were blamed for breaking that window, and so on. People were probably right. Quite often it was because of Olivia's inattention that something happened. It would have been one thing, or say, once a year. But when it happens every day, more than once, does everybody else have it all under control? No, and 1,000 times no. Some, on the contrary, avoid all kinds of trouble so easily, as if someone were warning them at the right moment. Take Sky's friend, for example. She takes a step to the side without thinking and without much need, a second before a brick falls from the roof onto the spot where she was standing. She easily walks past where the drunken hooligans are ready to appear. If Sky comes to the bus stop, the bus she needs pulls up at the same minute, and it's completely free. And whoever she calls on the phone is always answered. What luck? Lucky. To be fair, most of Olivia's recurring mishaps were not so great as to ruin her life. Yeah, annoying incidents that ruined her mood, her reputation, whatever. But she was not spared from bigger troubles either. Although most of them were of such a nature that the girl could blame others, at least mentally, just like yesterday. Olivia was walking down the street, thinking about her not-so-happy fate, and did not notice a handsome man who stood in the way. A guy about her age, you might even say. Not just handsome, but so chic, wearing a milk-colored cashmere coat. But in his hand, alas, were not flowers, which he decided to give to the first beautiful girl. And she would have been Olivia. And not even a smartphone or car keys, but a disposable cup of coffee, which the distracted Olivia had grabbed. There was an awful brown stain along the edge of her cashmere coat. Young lady, could you be a little more careful? Oh shit, you ruined my coat. I have to go on business. And here she is, walking, not looking around. Of course, Olivia apologized. She blushed, almost cried. She offered to pay for the cost of cleaning her coat, but the young man just rudely brushed it off and went on his way. Well, you're welcome. And he could not drink coffee, but to see Olivia fall in love, get acquainted. And then that would be the end of all her failures, or the beginning of new ones. All he wanted was a cup of coffee. And just as Olivia was walking by, and judging by the look of the victim, he could have gone to any restaurant for a cup of coffee. Although, it's possible he's just bragging. He bought himself a coat on sale and is walking around like he's rich. After all, isn't he as much of a loser as Olivia herself? A loser in a white coat. She, too, had quite a bit of white in her closet just to get rid of the mishaps. Whatever. Let's hope he made it to the dry cleaners quickly, and that the coat didn't lose any of its marketable appearance after cleaning, and that yesterday's incident will be one of Olivia's more unfortunate mishaps. There were, of course, more global failures in Olivia's life. That is, not even failures, but blunders. Wrong steps taken, probably because she was simply irresponsible, and decided to let things take their course. That's how she chose her profession. Her mother did. Go to finance college. You'll go to work like a normal person. In a clean suit with a manicure, mother advised. Olivia, by the way, had always been a creative person. She drew well, liked books. Who could have stopped her from being a librarian? It pays too little there. The woman objected. Mom, she heard the word financial and thought it had something to do with money. So her unlucky daughter won't be without money. So what's next? Olivia went to school diligently. She got a profession. She works as an economist. She hates her job with all her heart. The salary, by the way, is not more than in the library. And the same dust to breathe, only not sweet, book dust, but from unnecessary documents. Boring, uninteresting job. Boring staff. And all that life has to offer her is a small rented apartment in an old house. So uninteresting that no one even turns on the heat, despite the fact that it's October. And personal life is also a big deal in the life of all girls and women of 25. Olivia, who celebrated her 20th birthday not long ago, has no personal life. Yes, Olivia had no luck in her personal life. Can you ever get used to that? Okay, Peter's married. It happens. First love. That's understandable. It wasn't really love, though. I'm just tired of lying to my girlfriends. Do you have a boyfriend? Of course. And not a boyfriend, but a man. With a car, grown up, serious, Olivia answered. You don't have to tell everyone about his marital status. And why should she think about it herself? Let him think about it. Let him deal with his wife. Olivia didn't want to marry him at all. It just dragged on for a good 2 years, until she met Walter. He was almost the same age as Olivia, but for some reason, he thought he was, if not older, certainly smarter, and in every way, a more worthy man than the country girl from the dormitory. And she fell head over heels in love, and 2 more years have been erased from her life. It's lucky he didn't ask her to marry right away, because if she had, she would have suffered a lot. It would have been better if she had stayed with Peter. It wouldn't have done her any good, but it wouldn't have done her any harm either. Walter had offered, but only when he realized that he had lost his chance. And Olivia realized what a nightmare she could get into, and she refused. Then Walter himself got worried and fidgeted, but it was too late. What now? In her independent life, she experienced 2 happy and unhappy affairs. There were also some meetings that did not lead to anything good. Can I put that on the list of failures? Yes, I suppose so. Where else? With these thoughts and memories in mind, Olivia finished her preparations for the day's work and stepped out onto the still dark, chilly street. The weather, fortunately, can't be called a personal setback, and neither can the heating problems. It's the same for everyone, even the luckiest. Although also, how to say, the same sky is basking in some resort right now. In the land of eternal summer. And it's not the first time she's gone on the coldest, unpleasant days. And why? Because she married well. And not just because of a plan, but really for love. So now she has fun for her own pleasure. She doesn't work. The main thing is to love her husband. And here, from a cold apartment, down a cold street to a frozen office, with 2 transfers and even wait for the bus. Here comes the first bus. It didn't even stop. Crowd of people. The second bus pulled up quickly, but it was the wrong one. It takes longer to get to the subway, but it's bearable. She got there. Out, it's drizzling. Umbrella does not want to open. Do they make umbrellas especially for losers? They break and lose them. Here's the subway. She was lucky. The train arrived at the same time as she did, and there was even a vacant seat. Half an hour on the subway was not the worst time of life, especially when I managed to get on. That 30 minutes one way was her time. She could read an ebook or just relax, think about her own things, not being distracted by anything. Where do people come from? Early in the morning, with completely incomprehensible things. Someone sneaks something with sharp corners past, hits Olivia. The tights she bought the day before yesterday were torn. Of course, she who is used to such mishaps always has a spare in her purse. But she would have to walk to work with a very noticeable hole. From the crowd they said grimly, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "I forgive you," Olivia replied calmly and thought to herself, "What can you do?" At least he apologized. "I usually forgive without it. I don't have to fight with everyone else." She stepped out of the subway, fighting with her umbrella in the drizzling rain, and walked through the park. The phone rang. She mechanically grabbed her purse, though it was clear it wasn't her phone that was ringing. Stop. There's nobody around. Where did the sound come from? Ah, there. The phone screen glowed in the wet grass. Someone has lost it. She picked it up, but the call had already ended. The phone is simple, not new. Probably not the richest person lost it. I should return it. It would be a plus to karma. Plus was a joke, of course, but Olivia never missed an opportunity to do a good deed, trying to placate fate that way. At work, it was business as usual. Calculations, computer malfunctions. The nagging of the boss, routine. She shared the news of her find with her girlfriend. "Is the phone even expensive?" "Show me," asked Mia. "How expensive is it? When have I ever found anything good?" "I've only lost it. Now there's a new concern. I have to get it back." Olivia showed her the phone. "What a trifle. Throw it away. Some pensioner must have lost it. It's a real hassle, isn't it?" "Oh, honey, thank you. I'd really need that phone. Bring it to me. He'll give you an address you can't get to. And no reward, so don't make it hard on yourself." "Okay, I'll find out whose phone it is later. But I have to give it back, especially if it's some grandmother's." Olivia objected, put the phone in her bag, and forgot about it until tonight. The phone rang when she was already sitting at home, making herself a sandwich for dinner. She did not consider it necessary to prepare more complicated dishes for herself. And then the phone rang. As she picked up the phone, she heard a pleasant man's voice. "Good evening. I understand that you found my phone and are ready to give it back." "Yes, of course, only I can't go anywhere." "You can meet me tomorrow at 6 p.m. in the same square. I'll be walking from work in a white jacket. It's a deal. I'll be there." That's how her conversation with the man who lost his phone ended safely. No accusations or requests were made. Tomorrow she will give the phone back and soon forget the story. Well, maybe the good deed will really count for something. It turned out that the phone was lost not by a pensioner or even a child. Judging by the voice, quite a young man. Then the next day, just as windy and rainy, Olivia wandered through the empty square without fear, glancing in the direction from which, perhaps, a car would appear. "Good evening. Are you Olivia?" She heard a voice behind her. She looked behind her, and she saw a man driving up in a wheelchair. "And I'm Frank, the man who lost his phone." "Hello. It's not a very good evening like this. It's starting to rain again," Olivia replied. "It's no big deal. It's fresh air. Besides, I found the phone. You and I met. Is that so bad? You know, for your kindness, I should at least invite you to a cafe." The man pointed to a nice place. "It's a great place to shelter from the rain," Sit in the warmth and talk. Don't refuse, Olivia." I don't even know. Olivia really didn't know what to do. There didn't seem to be the slightest reason to say no, but she had never socialized with a wheelchair user. How would they walk together, side by side? I mean, they'd have to talk. What if she doesn't hear something? Or him? And what? Bend over to him every time. But wouldn't that be humiliating for Frank? But it probably wouldn't be polite to say no flatly either. He'll think she's refusing because of his disability. And anyway, how long has it been since she's been in a cafe with a nice young man? "Really, I don't have much of a hurry. Let's go," Olivia agreed in surprise. And it turned out that walking beside a man who was essentially sitting wasn't so difficult after all. At first, she thought she would have to help. She often saw on the streets or on television that people with disabilities were being carried. But it turned out that Frank didn't need it at all. He drove his own transportation skillfully. And not just skillfully, but beautifully. Well, in the cafe, when Olivia sat down with Frank, their faces were on the same level. However, Olivia did not yet know what to talk about with her new acquaintance. "You must have been very upset about losing your phone." The girl began the conversation. "Why?" "I knew a fine man would find it. And as you can see, I wasn't mistaken," Frank replied cheerfully. "As you understand, it has no material value. And the numbers that are written in it are easy to recover. The only thing that makes it dear to me is that it was given to me by my grandmother who died 7 years ago. And you can see how reliable the phone is, how many times I dropped it. And here it was lying on the damp ground for 24 hours, and it still works. Well, yes, apparently, it was a gift from the heart. Grandmothers usually love us. Mine died 6 years ago, too. Very sad. Yes, it's sad that we were left without them in this world. But it's great that grandmothers and grandfathers were in our lives after all, right? I have so many fun memories with my grandmother. Oh, come on. What would you, Olivia, like to order? I'm not really hungry. I'll have a coffee and a cake, but we'll pay for ourselves. All right? You don't want to rob an invalid? Frank smiled, guessing Olivia's thoughts. Don't worry, I have money. There are plenty of opportunities to make money now. And I'm taking advantage of them. Opportunities not only to work, but also to relax. And you, Olivia, how do you like to rest? And Olivia suddenly realized that she had nothing to say. It was too boring to talk about her work. And rest? Well, she lies or sits, sometimes reads, sometimes watches a movie. What was there to be embarrassed about? Olivia went and told Frank everything as it was. That's life. What's the big deal? Noticing how he raised an eyebrow, she asked, "Does that sound boring to you or bad?" "What's wrong with that? If you love your job, your home, it must be great." "I can't stand work. And my home, that is, the place where I now live, is difficult to love with all my desire. I am well aware that it is just silly to live like this at my age. But I live. Maybe I'm stupid. I don't know." Noticing the change in her acquaintance's gaze, she thought irritably, "I don't want the invalid to feel sorry for me. You'd think his life would be more fulfilling and full of experiences than mine. Well, why is it stupid? It's okay. Except that this kind of life can really get boring. Let me make you an offer that may not change your whole life, but at least for the next weekend. My friends and I are going out of town for a vacation. We've rented a lovely cabin there. Come with us, Olivia. There's just the place available. But I don't know any of your friends, and I hardly know you either. And the weather is not for such outings." But Olivia did indeed suddenly catch fire. Why not actually change at least the next weekend? She's still very young. And life flows in the same scenario. The road to work, the work itself, then the road from work to home again, the constant failures. That's where we'll get to know each other, me and the others. I promise you won't regret it. There will be a kebab. There's a fireplace in the house. There is fresh air outside. If it rains, it will be a wonderful rain, Frank coaxed. And having imagined all this, Olivia suddenly agreed. They arranged to meet tomorrow morning and went home. On the road, Olivia was still hesitant. Am I crazy? with total strangers. No one knows where or why. What if there's some kind of freaks? Or something worse? It does not happen that in a strange company unknown why and for what purpose invited a girl you do not know. And she naively agreed. I'm not going anywhere. I do not need this cheerful Frank and his friends. I need to get some sleep, not drive through the woods, even in the most wonderful rain. At home, however, before she went to bed, Olivia set the alarm clock. It's morning again. The alarm clock is ringing, but the sound is not as disgusting as before. Even though the heat was not turned on, the room was still warm with joyful anticipation of something unusual. I've been stuck in here too long, Olivia marveled to herself. Then Frank called, asking if she was ready to go. Yeah, I'm almost ready. I'll be out soon. We'll be waiting in the car. Fine. I don't care if I'm with crazy people. I'm with whoever. As long as I'm not alone, Olivia decided as she hurried toward the exit of the house. Of course, there were no crazies, just 2 guys, 2 girls, and Frank. After quickly getting to know the new member of the company, everyone headed to the place of rest. And the place was truly magical. The cottage, built in the middle of the forest, was styled as a forest hut, but at the same time it was equipped with all the requirements of people who are used to urban comfort. Olivia did not immediately realize that Frank was not the only disabled person. One of the girls was moving around rather strangely, but it was not easy to notice that she had a prosthesis instead of one leg. But their activity and readiness for joy was immediately apparent. Olivia had never had such a happy weekend. She could not play the guitar and was ashamed to sing, considering her voice ugly, but here with pleasure sang in the general choir. And it was great. My God, how much I've restricted myself before. Maybe that's why I haven't had any luck, she thought in amazement. And now it seemed all her mishaps were over. Even in such unfamiliar surroundings, she had never twisted her ankle or pricked her toe or burned herself by the fire or the fireplace. She had even forgotten that it could happen, because she was sure those days would be her happiest. And they were. Who's stopping me? I consider myself unhappy. I walk around upset for days, even if my pantyhose tear. And people know how to rejoice even when they can't walk, Olivia thought. In the evening, relaxing with Frank by the fire and admiring the sky full of stars, she shared her thoughts with her new friend. You know, Olivia, everyone needs love, wants to love someone or something. It's impossible to live without it. And you seem to love your failures. And since you love them, they don't leave you. I don't know, but I won't love them anymore. It turns out there's so much to love. It's great, isn't it? Unbelievable. And I congratulate you on starting a new life, Olivia. Sunday evening, friends drove Olivia to the subway. They dropped her off. She herself wanted to be alone, to relive everything that had happened to her in those 2 days. It seemed to her that internally she had changed a lot. And maybe the world around her had changed too. And it would never be the same, she hoped. As she approached the house, she put away the umbrella and exposed her face to the small fresh raindrops. What a cheerful inclement weather! How easy to breathe! How could anyone not love autumn and rain? She thought cheerfully, breathing in the damp air filled with the scent of wilted leaves, and entered the house. After this trip, so unexpected, the girl's life really changed. No troubles, various complications continued to disrupt the smooth flow of life at times, but they no longer disturbed her peace of mind. Olivia decided to change her life, to become completely different. Communication with new friends who didn't leave her behind helped. She talked a lot with Frank and with others, but more with Frank, of course. It was so easy for her to talk to him, revealing all her secrets. He told her a lot about himself too. How he had lost the ability to walk because of an injury he had suffered as a child. How he had recovered steadily, trying not to lose hope and not to fall into despair. And each conversation with this unusual man gave the girl confidence in herself. He turned out to be an optimist. How could she not change after such conversations? You know, I believed in myself. The doctors thought that I would be paralyzed forever. But I managed to change their minds. Thanks to my parents, of course. They also believed in the best, helped me, invited coaches. I am happy that I can move around at least that much. I thought that my legs would recover, but alas, that did not happen. And there is no hope? Asked Olivia cautiously. There is always hope, but don't just live your dreams, getting upset when they don't come true. I'm working on myself, but if it doesn't work out, I won't stop hoping. That's my way of thinking. I, started to reason that way too. I'm thinking about leaving my job and getting another specialty. I just imagined that I would be like this until my old age, doing the same thing, which is what I don't like. I don't know what I would like and how to achieve it, so I'm in no hurry to quit. It's the right thing to do. In fact, maybe you shouldn't leave. After all, you studied. You got this profession. Important, necessary, and promising. And now to give it all up? Wouldn't it be easier to love what you do? And at the same time, you can do what you really like. Not for the money, but just for the soul. You can run your own blog on social networks. You can do anything. Just keep a personal diary telling everything that happens to you today, how you lived yesterday, about your plans for tomorrow. That's how I started too. Believe me, it's very interesting. Well, maybe, someday. I don't think it will. I can't be called an interesting person. Olivia, understand, as long as you sit in your comfort zone and feel sad about your bad luck and nerdiness, it's going to stay that way. You're paying for the internet, right? Well, there you go. So by starting to do something instead of just looking at, say, pictures, you'll get to know yourself better, and so will other people. However, you can do something else, which will make you realize that your current job is not so bad at all. You're sly, Frank, laughed Olivia, and clever. I've learned a lot from you. And you thank God, Olivia, that the lessons were not so cruel. The young man replied with sudden seriousness, pointing to his still feet. The girl felt ashamed. Indeed, how much Frank would have accomplished if not for that fateful accident that killed several people and took away his ability to walk. You know, Olivia, I know a lot of survivors who haven't given up. They all say that the misfortune happened when it was supposed to happen. A year earlier or a year later, they couldn't have survived it. Well, nothing happened to you, I guess you could say. So that's why you have to live, rejoice, and find positive moments in every manifestation of life. In bad weather, in an uninteresting job, in the people around you, especially in people. You said that many people accuse you of being inattentive. But the worst thing is that you are inattentive to people. Is it? The girl was surprised and even slightly offended. Well, yeah, you only pay attention to people who stand out. You say everyone at work is so boring, uninteresting. But what do you know about these people? I can't know everything about everyone. The girl objected. You can't, but you don't have to. About some at least. You know, sometimes I think I threw my phone under the bench on purpose for you to find so we could meet. He said gravely, you're actually very interesting and beautiful. It was a long time before Olivia and Frank realized that they were no longer just friends. During the Christmas celebration, which took place in the same cabin in the woods, their first confession and first kiss took place. I still don't believe we can be together, Olivia whispered fearfully. And I know how to test it, Frank replied. Try it? The girl guessed. Well, you already know and understand everything yourself, but you wonder and don't believe anyone. Or is it because I'm handicapped? Well, you know, I hardly notice it anymore. It's all my prejudices. I don't believe I'll ever be happy anyway. Maybe I should really try to be happy. Why don't you try changing your last name, Olivia? You'll be happier with mine. Sorry, really, no ring and no bouquet. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't ready either, but I agree. And the rings don't matter. We already have a real talisman, your old phone. Take care of it, like a real treasure. Don't you dare lose it again. That's how Frank proposed to Olivia to be his wife. The wedding took place in the spring. Some people didn't understand Olivia and her decision to commit herself to an invalid forever. Even her mother, who came to the wedding, was surprised. How can you ruin your life like that? Well, I understand if you fall in love. But what if you fall out of love? Divorce with such a kind of already, and it would be quite dishonorable. And you can fall in love with someone else. I can't, Mom. And I'll never stop loving Frank. I've never been so happy. And he's the only one to thank for that. Soon you'll see that too. He's extraordinary. Very extraordinary, Mother sighed. Only the couple's mutual friends understood everything perfectly. And some of the girls were even jealous of Olivia. And as it soon turned out, for good reason. Yes, Frank did a lot of work. But it did not work out that way. Olivia had to quit her job. Well, yes, such a husband needs care. How will they live on one pension? If only Olivia had thought to get custody. People sympathized. But there was no need for that. It turned out that Frank made a pretty good living, which gave the couple the opportunity not only to live normally, but also to travel. Yes, they loved to travel together. And not to expensive resorts, but to places quiet and picturesque, which in moments of solitude belonged only to them. They would settle down in a tent overlooking the snow-covered mountains, admire the starry sky, the views surrounding them, and couldn't get enough of the fresh, cool air, and enjoy their happiness.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, "I'm moving to the sales department soon." If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. "Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it." On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. "Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived." I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. "They look good." "What are you talking about?" "These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one?" As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself. This could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. "Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay?" I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. "Yes, I'm inviting my father." "That's great. I might invite my parents too." I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.